Hi, I'm going to make you an offer. There is a paradise on the other side of the world, where the ground is always fertile, where the weather is always perfect, and where the land is free for the taking. And it can all be yours, with some small caveats. All you have to do is pack everything you own into a wagon and then just start walking west. Leave behind the only home you've ever known in order to cross an ocean of grass and then trek over one of the most dangerous mountain ranges in the world. You will exhaust yourself every day. You will push your body to its limits in an attempt to cross an entire continent in a summer. The wilderness will be unkind, and you will be hunted just as often as you will be the hunter, and you and your family members have a 1 in 25 chance of dying. But if you take that chance, you will embark on the greatest adventure of your lifetime for the hope of a brighter future for yourself and your family for generations to come. So, are you interested? In this video series, we're going to take a look at a group of people who answered yes to that question and ran into some problems. Because through poor decision making, the rampant hucksters of the Old West, and just plain old bad luck, they became one of the most infamous human disasters in American history. Now, I must warn you, this story is nightmare fuel if you're not ready for it. But at the same time, it's also a story of courage and the human spirit, of heroism, and the raw strength that average people can produce when they are faced with the most extreme hardships that this earth has to offer. This is the story of the Donner Party, a group of average people who, while in search of the American dream, stumbled backwards into a cannibalistic nightmare. The story of the Donner Party begins with fraud. The year is 1846, and James Reed has just purchased a book that is hot off the press called The Immigrant's Guide to Oregon and California, written by Lansford Hastings. Remember this face, he'll come back. You see, people weren't stupid. They had to plan for these things before they went out and just started walking west. And so when they went immigrating, they didn't just pack up their belongings and go. Instead, they purchased guidebooks from veteran mountain men that would explain what routes to follow. They would set expectations of what hardships to expect and how to overcome them. This particular manuscript is the latest and greatest that the West has to offer, with details about obviously what to expect, and claimed that the passage would be trying but not impossible. With enough sheer good old-fashioned American grit, any common settler could cross the continent and arrive in the West to claim a better life for their families. But unfortunately for James Reed and the rest of the Donner Party, the entire book he just purchased is a lie. Written by one of the many con men that seemed to infest the Old West in the mid-1800s. You see, Lansford Hastings was inspired by the Texas Revolution a few years earlier and dreamed of doing the same in California, where naturally he decided that he should follow up this dream of revolution by becoming the Emperor of California. There was just one small, minor obstacle in his way, and that was the fact that the area was already well settled and established by the local Spanish population that had arrived there some 300 years earlier. But Hastings had a plan for that. He had a plan to go with his ambition. He would flood the region with millions of white American settlers to conquer the state in a bloodless revolution. All he had to do was convince millions of people to pick up their things and move west. And what better way to do that than to publish his own guide telling people how amazing California was. Not only that, he looked at a map and noted that, quote, the most direct route from the California immigrants would be to leave the Oregon route about 200 miles east from Fort St. Paul, thence bearing west-southwest to the Salt Lake, and then continuing down to the Bay of San Francisco by the route just described. Now, setting aside the old adage that the map is not the territory, and the fact that Hastings had never actually traveled this route himself, Hastings encouraged travelers to leave the established, trying but relatively safe Oregon Trail in order to take his shortcut. After all, the faster he could shuttle immigrants from the east into California, the sooner he could become emperor. That's madness, but unfortunately, these 46 words that were buried in the back of the manuscript were considered to be gospel in the mind of James Reed. Everything in Hastings' book, including this small paragraph, was his one sole source of truth in order to get him and his family from the Midwest all the way out to California. We'll see why that's a problem later. But before we crucify James for his interesting decision, we have to remember a couple things. For one, we have the benefit of 200 years of hindsight here. And in a way, James was actually doing the right thing. He had never traveled west before, so he went out and bought a book that he assumed to be accurate from a man who claimed to be an expert. He could not have known that this shortcut would drive them into the maze-like canyons of the Wasatch Mountains, and he could not have guessed that this would drive his wagon train across 80 miles of waterless, blistering salt flats, or that this quote-unquote shortcut would add 125 miles to his journey. Unfortunate. James also made a mistake here because it was common knowledge that if you wanted to journey west, you would need to leave in like early April. And if you really wanted to push your luck, you could get away with like May 1st. But James thought he had this little shortcut in his back pocket, and so he pushed his departure date back to May 12th, which is a decision. But again, using the information he had at his disposal, he thought the journey was going to be shorter because he had this shortcut written by a con man. Unfortunate for him. So the 87-member train departed on May 12th from Independence, Missouri, and they will arrive, some of them will arrive, in California as a broken, emaciated shadow of the people that they once were. If you like this comment or content, feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. Let me know if you enjoyed it. I don't know if you can tell, I'm a massive history nerd, more than I'm actually a gaming nerd. This is what I enjoy doing more than almost anything else. So I hope you guys enjoy this content now. I've enjoyed revisiting this old content of mine, so I hope you found it to be a fun experience as we go through and talk about this, fun is a strong word, this entertaining story of the Donner Party. I hope you have a good day. I'll see you next time. Take care.